Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Dychronic, your host on this Destiny 2 video, and today we'll be taking a look at these Xur, inventories, random rolls, my recommendations for March 26th, 2021. You can find these Xur in his regular location in the tower. Just make your way into the top left section of the hangar, and these Xur can be found right here at the precipice. What an amazing view. This is a high overview of his inventory in case this is what you wanted. And just as a personal thing before I move on, I just wanted to ask you guys, I recently got a new preamp adapter for my microphone because I noticed some crackling and pop noises. If you hear any crackling noises in this video or future videos, please let me know so I can figure out if I have this fixed. And obviously I will pay attention as well. Moving on to the weapon today, we have the Sweet Business, a weapon that came out with the base game that was a very exciting weapon as a minigun primary ammo weapon with, let me just say, a nice wood finish and gold finish to it. We used to call it the Sweet Business because it was so fun to use. However, from my testing, admittedly my testing was quite a few seasons ago, the DPS on this weapon, even at its maximum fire rate, is actually really low. It actually was less than a hand cannon, which I thought was the entire purpose of this weapon, is to become more of a DPS primary. So keep that in mind, that it was a long time ago, but the DPS is not bonkers. Definitely things like Teraba, Outbreak Perfected, Hawkmoon have way better potential than this weapon. However, if you've never heard of it, first of all, it has a very large magazine of 150, increased accuracy when firing from the hip, which is nice to see, and then picking up ammo for this weapon, which is the white bricks, immediately loaded. So you walk over white, you get full ammo back into your magazine. And with that, also business time, sustain fire, boost range, and fire rate. Important here, it also boosts the range. I think the fire rate goes up to like 900, 1000, or 1200 or something. It gets pretty freaking fast, and you use 150 very quickly. And on top of that, it also has a catalyst. I don't remember what the catalyst does, and I don't really care. I don't really like this weapon. Some people really like in the Crucible. They fire it up early, they come around the corner at maximum speed, and they can really shred targets. However, in PvE, there really isn't that much use for a DPS primary that's not very good DPS. You'd rather just use any primary with a special weapon for DPS. Moving on to the Hunter exotic today, we have the Lucky Raspberry. Actually a top 10 exotic for my hunters for quite some time now, and if you haven't used it, I would personally recommend it. If you've never heard of it, it increases the chaining capabilities of your arc bolt grenade, which means that it chains at a farther distance and to one extra enemy and has a chance to recharge each time it deals damage. For what I remember, it's a 25% chance cumulatively per enemy hit with it. So if you hit 4 enemies with your grenade, which is the maximum, I believe, that gives you a 100% chance to charge it, which is what the last line says, a full chain always charges it. In general, you're going to be hitting probably 2 to 4 enemies with your grenade every single time, so it's anywhere from 50 to 100% chance of getting your grenade back. And this is true even in PvP. Even with a 25% chance to instantly charge your grenade by hitting 1 enemy with that grenade is really nice. The biggest downside is it does force you to be Arc, which is not the current strongest subclass for the Hunters. You definitely see a lot more Stasis Tornadoes, Spectral Blades, even Golden Gun people have been doing much better than this particular subclass type. And as far as the PvE side of things, I prefer using Shinobu's Vow with skip grenades as they do a lot more damage, and there's a lot more twiddly bits with it, which means even more damage. As far as the roll goes, it's very even. Obviously, you'd like a lot of discipline in case it doesn't instantly recharge it. You'd like a lot of recovery and mobility because it's a hunter and more PvP based. So it has a lot of the stats you'd want and an okay total stats of 61, but I would not personally be a fan of this role. Moving on to the Titan exotic, we have the One-Eyed Mask. Used to absolutely tear everyone's butthole in the Crucible, was ridiculously overpowered, and the only 10 out of 10 I ever gave on any of my rankings because it was literally the only thing you could use in the Crucible. It was better than every other option for every single build. And that's what it was before. Nowadays, it's in my top 10, and I definitely would recommend it if you don't have it, and it still has a good perk on. If you've never heard of it, it highlights enemies who dare to damage you, and highlighted means a red silhouette when you can see them, and it track down and destroy your enemy for an overshield, which it takes a little bit of time for that overshield to charge. If you didn't know, when this exotic first came out, that overshield came up instantly, also gave you full healing, gave you a damage bonus, and you got stinger hit markers to see enemies through walls, and it lasted a really long time with a very short cooldown between vengeance. And outside of that, I would also recommend it for PvE as well. There are too many times where people are dying while using a Helm of Saint 14 in a raid, where that's a completely useless exotic for the raid. If you ever find yourself dying, use this exotic. It could help you, especially in scenarios where you don't need anything else. As far as the stats go, you'd like to see a lot of recovery because it's more PvP based, and I guess Titans like strength, but overall, not a big fan of this roll, and definitely 59 is pretty low. And apparently it has an ornament that perhaps fixes the ugliness, because this literally looks terrible with every single color, and I hate everything about it. And finally, for the Warlock exotic, we have the Chromatic Fire. First of all, the ornament looks dope as hell. Second of all, this is a very fun exotic, but third of all, I do not think that it is a very good exotic. Basically, it's Dragonfly of your subclass color on any precision kinetic weapon. Now, my biggest argument here would be, why don't you just use an energy weapon that has Dragonfly as one of the 4 possible perks, and then use an exotic, which is an incredibly big part of the build, for something else. The biggest counter argument is that you can use it with a solar subclass on certain kinetic weapons that can never have that particular thing, and use an energy weapon that is not solar and still get the solar blast explosions for that Warmind Cell thing, which is cool. But my counter would be just use an Ikelos or 7 Seraph weapon if you want Warmind Cells. Don't make it complicated because you want to use Hawkmoon, get that Dragonfly explosions while using Attunement of Grace or Attunement of Sky so you can make Warmind Cells. Don't make it complicated. If you want to do that, you can, and this exotic allows you to do that, which opens up a lot of build possibilities and is, let me be clear, is a lot of fun, but it is not Grandmaster worthy. But I like it. I'm not poo-pooing on it. It's a fun exotic. As far as your roll goes, you'd like to see a lot of recovery, just because its recovery is always nice, and it's a Warlock. Outside of that, I also like to see a lot of intellect, because I do think it's more of a PvE exotic. However, the total stats is pretty middling at 60. This is my broke life right here. Doesn't even show me his wares, because he's like, hey, you're so poor, you can't. I'm rich. Give me my stuff. Outside of that, make sure you're picking up your exotic cipher quest, which gives you an exotic cipher that can either be used on the exotic archive, which you can pick up from the Xur every single week on all 3 of your characters, which you can also spend it on exotic engrams, which, if you did not know, these exotic engrams are guaranteed to give you an exotic you've never seen before and drop with a higher stat roll. If you obviously have all the exotics like I do, it's just gonna drop with a higher stat roll. I got 2 exotics here, 64 and 64. Overall, actually pretty good stats on both of these. Resilience is not my favorite, so not really a big fan of that one, but pretty high stat rolls overall. If you see a 64 or up, you're just like, ooh, that's a keeper. And that is gonna be pretty much it. That is the end of the video. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions or concerns. Again, also, come check out my live streams that I have right after these videos, as well as all the times on screen right now. It is a little bit changed since before because of the time zone shift and the immunity of Xur and reset and all that stuff to the daylight savings. I had to push some stuff back so I can actually eat food and still stream. And of course, big shout out to my patrons on Patreon. Specifically, I want to give a big thank you to Matty Buju, Mom, Dad, Charles Williams, Joe Smith, Monte, Natalie Hoppins, Dubaknos, Justin Rare, Raymond Choman, Unipanther, Cole Sherman, Casey Reagan for their support on Patreon, and I hope you guys have a great day.